One of the topics that I love to explore and cover on More Influence and Impact is numbers and financials because your money and your finances are literally the lifeblood of the business that keeps it running. And so when we focus on our sales and our marketing, we want to make sure that our business has high profitability and that we're watching our numbers and keeping an eye on them and that the money is performing for the business in the way that we want it to. And in order to do that, we must be educated. So I have brought on a guest to dive into this topic with us. I have got the amazing Carla Titus. Hello, Carla.
Hi.
Excited to have you on today.
Excited to be here too. I can't wait for our juicy conversation about all things
Yes,
numbers.
yes, yes. I'm sure you just love to talk about numbers all day long and all the things.
I definitely do. I know some people don't love that, but we just love everything numbers and love to educate others on how to close their gap in knowledge around it too, so that they can, have more profitable businesses here for the long term.
Yes, yes. And so your company is Wealth and Worth Within. And in your company, you offer both financial CFO services and also bookkeeping. So
That's great.
tell us about your journey of into entrepreneurship and kind of, your focus of your company today.
Yeah, so we've been in business for about 6 years and, growing. We have been working with clients from the beginning, helping them establish the systems and processes they're lacking around the financial management of their companies. My background is in corporate finance, and I realized that a lot of people actually don't know what finance management is or what a CFO does in a company. And I discovered that gap and also how much small business owners can benefit from this expertise and layering this additional insight on the financial forward planning of the business. It
Mhm.
doesn't happen often. If you're working with your bookkeeping team or accounting team, they're looking current and past. They're not really looking forward and helping you shift the profitability of the business or improve on the margins that you have, or even get yourself paid more from the business and look at owner's compensation. They're not proactively helping you manage that. And that is the work that we come in to do for all of our clients, is that forward looking, that financial planning piece that's normally missing because they're asking questions like, can I afford to hire? Can I do this? Can I do that? And they're not sure what the answer is, and none of their existing team is supporting them in that way.
Right. So it's really that forward thinking and those projections. And I had another financial expert on several months ago, and I'd be interested on your take on this, where she was talking about, when the economy is unstable or downturn, that it's very hard to look to the future and do projections. What are your thoughts on that?
We live and breathe uncertainty. It's
Yeah.
what we're trained to handle and deal with as a financial professional. And what I find often out there is just not a lot of people have this background or expertise that we do. We actually love the uncertainty and can handle it really well from
Mm.
a scenario planning perspective, as well as making educated assumptions around the things that we think will happen or might happen in your business going forward, depending on the actions that you're taking to navigate your business towards profitability or growth. So it's not a surprise, and it's not without obviously taking into account risk and things that could go sideways and things
Mhm.
that might not work out that you try also. We try to do the projections with very good educated assumptions that come from the business knowledge we have, as well as maybe taking into consideration the business model you might have,
Mhm.
the type of industry you're in, the size of business that you are as well, into the work that we do. So I would say, there's all types of professionals out there helping people. Just make sure you get the right one with the right experience that knows and can handle uncertainty the way that we do for our clients.
That's so well said. And so it's really not a one size fits all. Oh, the market is this way, or the economy is this way, and therefore, like, we're limited. It's like it sounds like that's where you really get creative, is in that uncertainty.
Yeah, and we get really plugged into the industries that we support. So we really understand the business model and understand, as a business partnership with the CEO, what might be happening outside of our control, as well as what's in our control, to make sure that we are shaping the financial situation of the business in a way that we want to see it. And also, with an economic downturn, sometimes comes a lot of opportunities for small
Mhm.
businesses. So we take that into account as well. We know that millionaires are made during the
Yeah.
downturns of the market when things are tough. Those companies can or have the ability to grow and generate jobs and create more
Yeah.
profits. And that's what we're going after, is that opportunity, assessing risk, and just making sure that we're very down to earth when it comes to planning, at the same time that we're capturing all those upside opportunities that are potential, avenues for us to generate more revenue as well as more profit for the company.
It's so nice to have that educated set of eyes and hands inside the business, really looking and understanding the industry rather than just, again, like not giving that one size fits all kind of generic. And so, I think the rise of like the fractional CFO, has been really happening with these online businesses and remote teams and things where, there's not necessarily the need for the full time person. So it kind of opens
Mhm.
doors of opportunity. And so really, like, where have you seen the clients really like needing your services and like raising their hand, like, we're ready, we want this?
Yeah, I think everyone at every stage has some need for forward planning and
Yeah.
projections and kind of mapping out what's going to happen in their business. But not everybody can afford to hire that on.
Yeah.
And it's why the fractional CFO role exists, is because you do not need a full-time CFO that costs you two to $400,000 a year
Mhm.
helping you, because there's just not enough scope for them. They're going to
Mhm.
be bored. They're not going to know what to do with their time. And you just don't need that. But you do need the expertise and the
Mhm.
insight. And so as businesses are getting started, a lot of it really is around foundational work that needs to be done to keep the business in the know of what's happening financially. That starts with bookkeeping, which is why we provide that service as well.
Mhm.
It's making sure your books are being done correctly, that the chart of accounts, reflects the type of work that you're doing, and answering some questions for you as well. And if you don't have that today, that's something I encourage everyone to evaluate for, as far as service providers, to make sure you have the right one in your corner. And then layering to that is tax accounting, piece of it, because everybody has to pay taxes, and you need to know how to play the tax game so you can
Mhm.
legally, pay less, just your fair share, and then keep the rest to invest back in the business. And we lay that out in the financial plan so that we know, okay, this is how things, expenses are going. These are the trends we're seeing. Here's how much we want to separate for taxes. And what I find is a lot of businesses just stop at that point and they don't really access this unlocked potential of what could the business be or become if you start to put some strategic thinking behind it and thought about what are some other revenue streams we could be developing. Are we allocating the right money to the right buckets of cost in the business for the structure we want to create for the profitability we're going after? And I
Mhm.
find that a lot of times those questions are so complex, and that complexity comes in at a stage in business, maybe 2-3 years in business, 5 to 10 employees, where it starts to just be a little bit more than what the owner can handle, or maybe
Mhm.
they're limited in like their knowledge of
Yeah.
finance management, and they really need to reach out for some help. And that's when they bring us on to support them as a retainer client. And before that, they might be accessing us as a one-time service, to project out their year or map out what's going to happen for their goals in the current year or the upcoming year. So they could still get a taste and access to the expertise without the ongoing cost. And if nothing else, we at least have their books covered and they get a monthly report out on how their company is performing. And ideally, they're at least reviewing that and help them by interpreting what the numbers are saying and telling them the story of the numbers in their profit and loss statement. So that's kind of how we play in all the roles as far as the support that we're able to help businesses with.
Yeah, and it's so helpful at every stage. I know, like for my business, like I did my own taxes and my own books for years. I've been an entrepreneur. My mom was very savvy, and then I just reached a point where at first I think it was the taxes that I hired out, and then the bookkeeper,
Mhm.
maybe all at once. But I
Yeah.
remember reaching that point. The way you described the CFO with services, like hiring those on, that's kind of how I was in my business when I was like, I can't do this another year. Like, there's no way. I feel so out of my scope.
Yeah,
And
it
it really
happens.
makes a big difference to have that financial education of your bookkeeper and your tax experts, especially when you're growing. And it can be one of those things where, we might have some listeners that are, startups and brand new in their business, and they don't really want to hire it out, right? They're afraid. of doing that, but it's actually in doing that, you're taking more responsibility, you're treating it like a real business.
Mhm. Well,
And
and
so you have other
oftentimes what
benefits.
we see is that people are DIYing their bookkeeping and at
Yeah.
tax time, they're leaving so much money on the table for deductions and things that they could have written off
Right.
as legitimate business expenses, but because of the way they categorize things or the way that their chart of accounts is showing numbers, they don't get to do that unless their tax accountant is really good and they're like, hey, we should really rebucket some of these things into deductions that you can take. But most accountants are overworked and there's not enough of them. And there's
Mhm.
not enough good ones out there. And they have, so many clients to take care of. They're just trying to process as quickly as they can tax returns. So they're not going to pay attention to like that line by line item and say, hey,
Mhm.
you're missing out on opportunity here, unless they're the type of accountant that maybe has more of that financial thinking or like,
Mhm.
tax planning savviness. And you can't just rely on one person doing that work anyways. And bookkeepers sometimes out there don't know accounting. You'll be surprised how many bookkeepers out there have
Mhm.
no background in accounting. They're just like, oh, this is easy, quote unquote. I'm just going to do it for people. And then they take
Yeah.
a course and then they start doing it. So don't necessarily think that your financial professionals or accounting professionals actually have the skill set or knowledge to this. You have to test for that and ask what is your experience in with accounting, and make sure that your tax accountant knows, hey, I DIY this. Do you have any recommendations to make sure I don't miss any deductions in my tax return? But this is where a good financial CFO will come in to say, manage some of those functions and help you kind of understand what's happening in your P&L, and then make those adjustments before tax time so that you're not stressing out your accountant, and make sure that your records are accurate and you're maximizing for like those tax deductions so that tax time is a lot easier, and that you're only paying your fair share. Again, we're going back to, we're trying to keep as much as we can for the business owner that works so hard, that puts countless hours in working in their business. You should see some kind of reward at the end of the day that goes beyond just a salary. Ideally, salary plus all the extra perks.
Yes, yes. And so that's great. Like not all financial professionals are created equal. You want to vet. Now, when you're working with clients, do you have like kind of your accountant that you recommend and like your team or accountants and people that you recommend out?
Yeah, so we work mostly with the existing team
Okay.
first, for a client, because we're not trying to replace anyone. We're
Mhm.
trying to augment and coordinate efforts, and we're all have the same goal, which is to help the client be more profitable and minimize their tax liability and like have good record keeping.
Mhm.
And so we partner very closely with those other functions for the tax accountant. If there is not one in place, we can bring some partners and make some referrals, and it's up to the client to decide who's the best partner for them,
Mhm.
because they're not just handling the business, they're handling everything
Right.
tax wise, their personal and their business. And then we love to train bookkeepers and help guide bookkeepers to be better bookkeepers
Mm.
and help support clients the best way we possibly can. So we take that approach first. Now, obviously, if the bookkeeper skill set or the accountant skill set is just not there, we might make some recommendations to make changes as needed, but we don't start there. We start
Mhm.
with existing team. We want everyone to, continue to support a client, especially if they're good. We
Mhm.
want to keep them for a long time because we're not trying to take over any of that tax work or payroll work. We don't do any of that. We only are here to help the client with a forward financial planning piece of the business, and that is comprehensive of all those other functions as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, what are some of the trends or things that you're seeing coming up right now, like in your conversations with clients and prospects? Like, are there any trends?
Yeah, so we see a lot, depending on the industry, that people are told to use profit first. That's a very
Mhm.
popular one. Like every time I say I'm a CFO, they're like, "Oh, do you know profit first?" And we're like, "Yes." And we think that the framework of thinking around it is valid. Like we want to lead by thinking about profit and paying yourself well. We just don't subscribe to the 14 bank accounts kind of situation, because that
Sure.
just makes it unnecessarily complicated, and you still can manage the buckets of money and allocation the right way without having to do all that extra work.
Mm,
We also see a trend that a lot of business owners have created businesses that are very successful, but they're not seeing any reward from it, meaning
mm,
financially they're not paying themselves a livable wage or market rate for the work that they do, or a salary that's commensurate with their efforts and what they've created, and they're not really building personal financial wealth because of their business. So we want to change that, and
Yeah.
we work with a lot of clients to help them, rework their numbers to make sure that
Mhm.
they're compensated fairly, and also better than if they were working a job, to be honest,
Right.
because you're putting so much work into it.
Yeah.
And the other trend we see with people is that sometimes they just shy away from the numbers because the numbers are not looking good. They're
Mhm.
like, well, if it's not great, why should I look at it? And we always say, you need to know, what is your starting point.
Mhm.
Even if it doesn't look great right now, what are you making progress towards? And if
Mhm.
you don't know your starting point, how would you know if you've made progress? And so encouraging folks to come to the table and not judge their numbers or judge themselves for their numbers either, because this is just a business you happen to run.
Mhm.
And making sure you understand, what is your starting point, and are you making progress towards the improvements that you want to see as you're working on your financial picture in the business. So even a simple thing like that can really transform a company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of those we could probably do a whole episode on. But now the businesses that are, they're successful, they're bringing in a lot of money, but then the owner isn't paying themselves and, they're not even a livable wage. And like, what do you typically see that's going on that's causing that? Because I know some businesses is it goes right back into ads and marketing and, they just put it right back in or they're just always investing in the next thing. And what do you see from your seat?
Yeah, so we see that they're prioritizing paying everyone else but themselves. It's like
Okay.
a decision they make, and like, well, I hire staff, so I have to pay them. But the staff is not producing the results they should be, or they're not holding them accountable. So there's one piece of it that we work with them on to, because then being a CFO goes beyond just the numbers. It's really like helping the business shape up to the financial picture we want to see, and really looking at the levers or drivers of what's sucking up the profit out of the business, and then
Mhm.
how do we fix it. And we might not be HR people, but we're definitely going to go make sure the owner holds people accountable to what they're getting
Mhm.
compensated for,
Right.
and then ensuring that we're getting that benefit or ROI, return on investment, from the people that we hire. We also see sometimes their allocations are just wrong. They're spending too much money on things that are not moving the needle for the business. They're
Mhm.
not seeing the results that they expected. And there's an aspect of investing and waiting sometimes on strategies to work. But then
Mhm.
after a few months, if you haven't seen any change, you have to question, is this the right strategy? Should we keep investing? If so, what is the time frame and for how long? And what do we expect to see as the result of this investment? And you have to go into investing in your business with clarity on what are the desirable outcomes and expectations of this particular investment, and what is
Mhm.
the time frame of that. Because then you can say, hey, this hasn't worked and I need to pivot and change and try something else, instead of like just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So, and
Mhm.
we see this often with marketing, and strategies and things that people deployed, and some things work, some things don't. And then
Mhm.
what I always say is like, everything should be treated as a test.
Mhm.
And then once you have validation that the test is working, then you can fuel that strategy with more cash and then continue to invest more because you know it's working. But
Mhm.
sometimes we just treat it as like an all or nothing, right? Either we do 100% or we don't do it. And it's like, that's not necessarily the way to think about it.
Right, right. Yeah, we really look at strategies in business as testing them for 90 days. Go in there, because like sometimes people will, like you said, like the all or nothing, or you go in and you give it 90 days, and then at the end of the 90 days, you gave it your best, and then you evaluate: is it working? Is it performing? Is it not? Can we tweak it and make adjustments to improve, or do we
Mhm.
want to abandon the strategy altogether? But and I think that kind of goes with your giving it a few months and testing it out, but putting years. And I think that's what happens for people is sometimes they'll just invest in, especially like marketing and even sales too, do things for a
Mhm.
really long time, and they don't lead anywhere, especially with the bottom line.
Yeah, and especially if you're not seeing profit, and you're like break even or losing money, you need to reassess what
Hmm.
is actually working and not working, and what changes can we make to ensure that we get different results. And we get just brutally honest. And if you didn't even have any metrics, going into it, and you just invested blindly thinking, oh, it worked for my friend, so I'm going to do it too. And then you had no idea what your expectation was and what you were going to get out of it, then it's going to be really hard to measure whether it's actually working. And so that's something that we get really clear on. If we're going to invest in something, and whatever the amount is, it doesn't matter. It's what are our key performance indicators? What are our KPIs that tells us we're on track, off track, we're making, progress or not towards the intended goal. And it can be just revenue. Sometimes there's leading indicators that
Yeah.
tell you that it's working, that will generate revenue ultimately down the way. But you need to have an understanding of what are those leading indicators. Maybe it's number of sales calls, maybe it's number of emails open, maybe it's number of conversion rate to first consultation, like whatever that metric is for you that leads you to ultimately have a paying client. You need to understand what those are, and then have clear expectations on what that is, the outcome you want it to be.
Yes, yes. So when somebody is getting, let's say, like at the CFO level, somebody's hired you and they're getting their numbers in line. Like, what are some of those positive outcomes and transformations that you see with clients? Because I think sometimes we get into like those frustrations. It's like, yeah, but what's possible for someone to have this all sorted out, or at least, it's not the magic wand, but be on the journey and on the path to the solution.
Yeah, and I would say CFOs can hide because our responsibility is to actually see the numbers shift,
Yeah.
and the numbers don't lie. And so if the P&L is not any different in January 1st on December 31st, then maybe you didn't do your job. And there's
Right.
situations where out of our control, there's things that happen, right? Maybe we had a batch of hires that just didn't work out for the business. There was a lot of churn, and it didn't allow us to grow the way we expected. Obviously, those things happen. It's out of our control. We're not doing the hiring. The people performing, we're not doing the work for the people either, right? But we had a plan to hire 10 people, and then those people didn't work out. That's kind of beyond what we can, do or control for
Mhm.
clients. But clients who work with us for 6 to 12 months are going to see things like increased profitability. On average, we're able to help clients grow their business as well on the top line as well as the bottom line in revenue, by 10-20%, depending on like the situation, how quickly they're moving. They're also going to see more cash in the bank. That's a
Mm.
physical representation of the work we do. Like, they have a cash cushion, they have a runway we help them build over time, because we now are helping them save money long term, even beyond our own costs, by the way, because this is where the
Mhm.
CFO becomes valuable in creating value for the business above and beyond what it costs to work with us. And then they should also be seeing a higher compensation, or the opportunity to have a higher compensation. Maybe the owner chooses not to take a bigger salary, but there should be a bigger allocation of total compensation to the owner that they get to either decide to take out of the business or reinvest back. But we're able to maintain business profitability as we're growing the businesses between 5 and 15%. So if that's not already happening, we help them craft a plan to get there and consistently stay at that level or better than.
Mhm.
And we use, because sometimes there's other things we're trying to invest in. We have clients that are deciding to buy real commercial real estate as part of their investment plan outside of the
Mhm.
business. That goes, a lot of the cash available. And so like but these are conscious decisions we're making together, and
Mhm.
analyzing risk and opportunities, and bringing the financial analysis needed to the table to say, is this a good decision for their business? Yes or no? What could be the risk? What is the potential upside? And then evaluating before making that decision is really the key aspect of what we do that helps clients become more profitable, have that cash in the bank, and pay themselves more.
Oh, I love that so much, especially the like looking at that next level. I was just talking to my husband about that the other night. It's like, the whole point is not to just like end with this business, it's to go on to use the revenue from this business to invest in the next one. And, that's how we can start to create that generational wealth. Cause I know I remember hearing like, it's like 7 income streams or something creates generational wealth. Is there a number that you have for that, or is that just more of a just something you people say online?
Well, so I'll do my take on this one
Okay.
because I feel really passionate about the personal wealth building journey of a business owner because I
Mhm.
think our potential and our abilities unlimited, right? You have no ceiling. You can make as much money as you want, and you just gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
And where I think they talk about the 7 income streams for millionaires, right? It's you have to get really good at doing one first
Yeah.
and do it well,
Yeah.
that it generates enough cash that then you can invest in the other 6 revenue streams that you want to
Mhm.
create. I think this is where people miss the point of it's not 7 at once because nobody can focus on 7 things at the same time.
Sure.
But if one that produces good profits and good cash, then you go buy the commercial real estate building that produces rent income that's passive for you, or maybe it's a residential real estate play you want to do. Maybe there is some 401k investing or retirement funds investing that you're doing that also is yielding dividends and growing over time as well. That's income stream number 2. Maybe you go acquire another business and bring it under your umbrella because now they're maybe saving you money on marketing because now you own the marketing firm that you just
Mhm.
bought. So now you kind of shift your cost and you're making money and also bringing in that support into your business. So now you're acquiring businesses that are adjacent or where you're spending most of your money into. If you
Mhm.
look at your P&L, what that highest cost is, then you might want to acquire a business of that. But now you're running 2 businesses. So like it's not necessarily like easier or passive. The 7 revenue streams you're going to create are going to be a byproduct of doing a really good job at the first one
Mhm.
and then kind of branching out from there so that your attention and your focus is not divided 3 different ways. And I do know a lot of people that own more than one business, and I don't know how they do it. They're amazing and I aspire to be them one day. But I think more on, can I acquire a bookkeeping firm instead of
Mhm.
just growing organically my bookkeeping, a book of
Mhm.
business, and I can do both, and that could
Mhm.
accelerate my path. And so I just want people to kind of think about the 7 revenue streams become again the byproduct of doing one thing really good, and then you kind of spread to build other wealth channels and wealth
Mhm.
building ways that you can bring in money.
Mhm. I really appreciate your take on that. It also kind of opens up, our viewers and listeners' minds around like what that could look like too, right?
Mhm.
So just stay focused, and then these adjunct businesses or things that complement, but get that initial business to where it's really performing well before trying to branch out.
Yeah, and you could do it all like kind of at the same time if you think about it. Some of the profit can go towards your retirement savings and index fund investing. Some of it can go towards creating or buying another piece of real estate and financing that. I think the thing that we don't talk often about is like now you own a real estate business, whether you wanted it or not.
Yeah,
So you're
right.
technically running 2 businesses now, but people think, oh, I'll just buy real estate. It'll be passive. I never have to touch it. I never have to do it. That's not true. So just kind of make sure you have a good team supporting you there and running it for you if that's what you
Right.
intend to be. An owner absentee is what we call it, right? And making sure that you don't limit yourself with just like what other people are doing, but just get creative. Like, what else you want to invest in? Maybe you want to start a brand new business, a second one. Maybe you want to have someone else run that for you. Maybe you can be an angel investor and invest in other businesses starting
Mhm.
up. I mean, there's so many ways that you can create other revenue streams. I like the more passive stuff that I
Mhm.
don't have to be involved in and it doesn't require me getting up every day to do it. Those
Yeah.
are my favorite, right?
Yeah.
Like index investing and like maybe some dividends that I get. Maybe I'm getting cash on my money market account that I just put my money that's sitting around and producing money for me while I sleep. Those
Mhm.
are my favorite kinds of revenue streams that are passive that I get to enjoy as a business owner. As I'm building profits and reinvesting into other things.
Yeah, yeah, because having a service-based business and then thinking about starting like another service-based business, yeah, passive sounds great. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Carla. So tell our listeners and viewers how they can connect with you further and where they can find you and all of the things.
Yeah, if you're looking for us, you can find us at wealthworthwithin.com. There's a book a call now button for those of you who are ready to hire a fractional CFO and want to see how we can work together to make some profitability happen in your business. And for those of you who maybe want to follow along the journey and see what new offers we're putting out, you can sign up for our newsletter on the same website. And if nothing else, you want some free educational content to take control of your finances in your business, make sure to follow us on social media at Wealth Worth Within. We're always putting out some fresh content around managing your business finances so you can all get better at it and feel more empowered around it.
Wonderful. And we'll have all those links for you all in the show notes. Well, thank you, Carla. It was great having you today. And thank you for all of the insights. It was a great conversation. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.